let's take a look at waiver wire pitchers from the weekend and some names in shallower leagues. These are between 70 and 80% rostered on CBS. Luis Severino, a complete game shutout up against the Marlins. 4-hitter with 8 strikeouts. He had 16 whiffs on 113 pitches. Michael Wacha, great once again at the Reds. 6 shutout innings with 9 strikeouts. Ben Lively bounced back from 2 rough outings in a row. He was at the Brewers. 6 innings, 2 runs with 5 strikeouts. And on the other side of that game, Colin Ray also bounced back from a bad start. He had a great one up against the Guardians. 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts. I feel like Colin Ray and Ben Lively are the same exact person, and I don't really know what to do with them in fantasy. I guess you just stream them in the right matchup. But Chris, how would you rank these names? Colin Ray, it might be based on the matchup if you want to take a look at that. But Colin Ray, Ben Lively, Michael Wacha, and Luis Severino.
Colin Ray's next 2 starts are the Padres and Diamondbacks.
Don't love it.
Can't say I have a ton of interest in either of those. We were including Lively, Texas. That's not a terrible one. Michael Wacha gets the Phillies. They're cold right now, but have been very good overall. And Luis Severino, the Padres. I think I like Ben Lively the best out of those because he has the best matchup in his next game. And with all 4 of these pitchers, I think that's pretty much all I care about. Wacha might be the exception. He might be a little bit above the streaming tier, but not someone that I think is a must-start pitcher by any means.
I was going to say Wacha's the exception. I think he should probably just be rostered at this point. He's been so reliable and has the track record to back it up. I understand the underlying numbers aren't that impressive, but this is the 3rd straight year now where he's just been money in fantasy regardless of that.
Let's move on to... Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was going to comment on Luis Severino since it was an awesome start. I don't think there's anything
the Marlins
to get excited about. Yeah, I mean, 4 earned runs plus in his previous 3. He has been using his sinker a lot less recently. Remember, he kind of was reinventing himself as a ground ball pitcher early on, and he was actually having more success when he was doing that. But he seems to be phasing it out. And apart from this one start, it hasn't been to his benefit. So I think you can ignore Luis Severino.
The next group includes Jeffrey Springs, who has had 2 strong starts in a row. This one up against the D-backs, 5 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, 11 whiffs on 76 pitches. Brian Bayo had a strong start at the Orioles, 6 innings, 1 run with 6 strikeouts, 15 whiffs on 97 pitches. 6 starts in the second half for Bayo. It's a 3.44 ERA and a 1.24 whip. JP Sears has been pitching well, this time up against the Giants, 7 2/3 innings, 1 run with 9 strikeouts, 18 whiffs on 105 pitches, 14 of those on his fastball. And he has turned in 4 straight quality starts, 7 innings in each for JP Sears. And we spoke about Bowden Francis earlier, who was part of this group. Scott, how would you rank Francis, JP Sears, Brian Bayo, and Jeffrey Springs?
Well, by and large, I'd say this group is more interesting than the last one.
Agreed.
Springs is obvious number 1. I would say he's must roster at this point. The velocity actually took a step back when he was already behind where he was when last healthy. But the changeup was awesome again, and that's his best pitch. And if it's piling up whiffs, maybe the velocity on the fastball doesn't matter that much. I have him as a sleeper pitcher this upcoming week. He gets Oakland, and I have a lot of confidence in Jeffrey Springs delivering good numbers for that one. So he's number 1. Number 2, I mean, we might just play the matchups game with these guys too, in which case I'm going to go with Francis against the Angels, then JP Sears, then Brian Bayo. I do want to point out with JP Sears that he's got kind of a Ryan Nelson thing going on where when he throws his fastball a lot, it goes well for him. So 3 of his last 4 starts, he's thrown his fastball close to 50% of the time. It was 48% in this latest 9 strikeout effort against the Giants. So I'm counting that as close to 50%. 3 out of 4, he's done that. All of them were 7-inning outings with great results.
He's had a whiff rate over 33% in 4 straight starts, I believe, which all of those starts have been at least 7 innings. It's weird because it's like a 90 mile-per-hour fastball, and it's not necessarily the kind of thing that it doesn't look like the kind of fastball that should be getting the results it does, but it's been super effective for him. He's the one out of these 4 that, like, I'm fine with going with him when he's hot like this, but 2 things. 1, 2 of those 4 starts were against the Giants, and those were the 9 strikeout starts. He had 9 strikeouts combined in the other 2, so it might just be he has their number for whatever reason. And then I will just say, this is the one that feels like when it goes wrong, it's gonna go really wrong, more so than the other ones in this group, I would say.
Again, that was JP Sears we were talking about. The next group includes Michael Lorenzen, who had a solid start at the Reds, 5 2/3 innings with 1 run, only 3 strikeouts. He gets the Angels this week, which is a good matchup. Ryan Nelson fired another strong start at Tampa Bay, 6 1/3 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, and over his last 8 starts, a 2.73 ERA and a .95 WHIP. I think he's out of the rotation, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know where Ryan Nelson goes from here. Aaron Savali, back-to-back quality starts. This one up against the Guardians, 6 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts. And David Festa has quietly pitched well since being recalled by the Twins. He was at Texas this weekend, 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, had 15 whiffs on 81 pitches, 5 starts since being recalled. It's a 2.38 ERA and a 1.15 WHIP for David Festa. Chris, any interest in this group? Festa, Savali, Ryan Nelson, and Michael Lorenzen.
So I will say credit to the Royals for making significant changes to Michael Lorenzen's approach. He's gone much more curve and sweeper heavy, a lot fewer fastballs. That's a good idea given his approach, but I don't think he really matters very much. I think he's just a streamer. Nelson, Scott mentioned it earlier, but that fastball, he's been throwing that fastball up in the zone a lot more lately, and it's been a really effective pitch for him. It's just, it doesn't seem like he's got a spot in the rotation. And that look, these kind of things, when you're talking about pitchers, you only don't have a spot in the rotation for the next turn in the rotation, and then something can happen. And something often happens with pitchers, but I can't exactly justify making him a high priority waiver wire ad when he doesn't have a rotation spot. So I would say Festa is the most interesting of this group. I think he's probably the most talented of this group. The problem is the Twins have just been really, really hesitant to let their young pitchers pitch deep into games. It's been a lot of 5 inning starts for him, Simeon Woods Richardson, Louis Varland when he's been in the rotation. So it's just, there seems to be a ceiling on how valuable these young Twins pitchers can be. But I think Festa is the most interesting of this group. I think there's a lot to like about him. He gets huge extension. He like has some of the best extension in the game, which makes his stuff play up. I think there's a legitimate pitcher here in David Festa.
Some names in deeper leagues. Osvaldo Bido, who pitches for the Oakland A's, was up against the Giants. He threw 6 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts, and he has turned in 3 straight quality starts over that stretch, 18 innings, 2 runs, 17 strikeouts for Bido. Andre Palante had a strong start up against the Dodgers, 7 innings, 2 runs with 5 strikeouts. And Albert Suarez had a strong start up against the Red Sox, 6 shutout with 6 strikeouts. He had 16 whiffs on 99 pitches. And last 3 starts for Albert Suarez, 17 2/3 shutout innings with 17 strikeouts. Scott, any interest here in deeper formats? Suarez, Palante, and Osvaldo Bido.
Well, with Albert Suarez, I don't even know that it has to be that deep of a format. And I hate to be a yo-yo with him, but he's now been back in the Orioles rotation for 3 turns, has yet to allow a run, or at least an earned run. I think a run at all in those 3 appearances. 13 hits and 3 walks in 17 2/3 innings, so a whip below 1, if you want to do that math real quick, about a strikeout per inning. He got 11 whiffs on the fastball today, but it's not like any of his pitches is a standout on its own, and the walk rate's kind of high and the strikeout rate's kind of low. So I don't really understand why Suarez is having so much success, just like earlier this year when he was. But he's come back around and he has the Orioles backing him up. So I think he's of interest in fantasy again. And he's certainly more interesting than these other two. Osvaldo Bido.
Yep.
He's been doing the Ryan Nelson, JP Sears thing of throwing his fastball a lot more, and that's why that coincides with his last 2 starts being amazing. But that's not enough of a trend for me to really buy into yet. Just something to note with him.
Yeah. If you are desperate in a deeper league, Beto gets the Rays this week. They're 27th in WOBA against right-handed pitching. So, yeah, if you're really desperate, I could see that working out well for him. And, of course, as soon as we buy in on Spencer Arrighetti, he has a clunker against the White Sox of all teams. 5 2/3 innings, 4 runs allowed, 2 homers allowed in this one. Interesting pitch mix usage. He threw more cutters in this start, which isn't a good idea. His 4-seam and his cutter, they get hit hard. His curve and his sweeper are his best pitches. So kind of just feels like he should use those secondaries a little bit more and fade the fastball and the cutter. But if you guys picked up Spencer Arrighetti recently, would you just hold on to him after this bad start, or you think he's a drop after this one?
I'd hold on to him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you hate that this happened against the White Sox. And in retrospect, I should not have started him over Aaron Nola.
I thought about that when I was making the rundown today.
Not that Nola was amazing, but, it went against my better judgment, and that's why it's called better judgment.